Dear Greg, my son is 16 years old, and I can't prove it, but I think he's using drugs. His grades have dropped, he's almost completely withdrawn from us, and sometimes he really looks doped up. When I ask him about it, he gets angry and denies it. What can I do? I don't want to upset him, but I feel like I should do something.
There are many behaviors in our children that we can patiently deal with as we love and teach them, but when a child is on drugs, or is even suspected to be on drugs, it's an emergency that must be dealt with immediately. Why are drugs different than other problems? First, if a parent delays taking action, the consequences can be unspeakable, including death. Second, once a child is dependent on drugs, he can't benefit from anything else you do for him. Real love can't even be felt by a child who is under the influence of drugs. He's in another world, out of reach. Third, you as a parent have to take action because a child on drugs can no longer judge whether he functions normally or not. Your son can't decide whether he needs help. So you have to make that decision for him. Because he's a minor, you can legally require him to go to a drug rehabilitation center for evaluation. And you have nothing to lose by requiring the evaluation. If it turns out that he's not on drugs, you'll have lost nothing but a little time and inconvenience. If he is using, however, you may be saving his life. Many parents are not willing to take the drastic steps required to deal with a child's drug use. They're afraid that their intervention will hurt the child's feelings. I hear this all the time from parents, or might hurt their relationship with the child. I can't begin to tell you how short-sighted that attitude is. In fact, that attitude, that reluctance to take action, can be literally fatal. In order to illustrate the relative risk and benefit of requiring a child to submit to drug evaluation and possible treatment, let's suppose you found your child lying on the floor, motionless and not breathing. Now, assume that you knew how to perform CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation. What would you do? Without any doubt, you would begin CPR, wouldn't you? And you'd start right now. Before you start, though, let me tell you that when you do CPR right, when you press on the chest hard enough to move blood to the brain so that you can save a life, it's not like that sweet, soft process that you often see on television accompanied by music. I worked in emergency rooms for 6 years, and effective CPR can sometimes result in bruised and even broken ribs. It's a violent process. Knowing that you might break a rib, would you still be willing to perform CPR on your child? Sure you would. A broken rib is insignificant compared to death. Similarly, using drugs is potentially fatal to our children, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. So, my question to you, the writer of the letter, is this. Are you willing to risk some pain? Are you willing to bruise some emotional ribs to save your son's life? Are you willing to risk his anger in order to save his life and give him a chance at real happiness? Many of us are not. We want our children to be drug-free, but we're not willing to do the emotional CPR that's sometimes necessary to help them. Most of us are not willing to offend our children and take the risk that they might not like us. We'll talk more about that in our next session.